The movie starts with a man named Chiro strolling down a quiet street. He spots an unlocked 4x4 vehicle, which seems like an easy target in this crime-ridden neighborhood. Although security cameras are all around, Chiro isn't deterred. He breaks into the car, steals the stereo, and takes a pair of sunglasses too. As a parting gift for the wealthy owner, Chiro leaves a mess on the back seats before hiding to avoid passersby. When the street clears, Chiro tries to reopen the car doors but fails. He even tries the trunk, but it's also locked. Frustrated, he kicks the windows, but they don't break. Rummaging in the trunk, he finds a tire iron and uses it to smash a window, but the glass doesn't shatter. Desperate, Chiro rips off some door trim and sticks his arm inside to unlock the car. However, he only succeeds in deeply cutting his arm in this botched theft attempt. Chiro then tries to break through the carpet, hoping to find a way out. But he soon realizes it's impossible to escape from inside the car. As a last desperate attempt, Chiro takes out a gun from his backpack and shoots at the windshield. What he didn't expect was for the bullet to ricochet and hit his leg. The loud gunshot and his new wound leave Chiro bewildered and speechless for a few moments. When he becomes aware of what happened, he takes off his shirt and uses it to stop the bleeding from his injured leg. Despite the attack, the glass remains unbroken. A woman walks by the car, and Chiro frantically tries to get her attention by staring, knocking on the window as she applies her lipstick. But she doesn't seem to notice or hear anything happening inside the car before walking away. No one outside can see or hear what's going on inside this vehicle. Chiro starts screaming desperately and honking the horn, but nothing works to signal for help. The trapped criminal has no idea who locked him inside, but he knows he's in grave danger. Whoever captured him did a very thorough job of preventing his escape. Frightened, Chiro takes out his cell phone and calls his wife. Chiro's bad luck persists as his phone battery dies mid-call to his wife. Feeling defeated, he finishes his soda and resigns to wait in the back seat, surrounded by his mess. With only a cricket for company, he waits for rescue. 24 hours later, still stranded, Chiro wakes up thirsty and tries to quench his thirst with water droplets from the window. Despite turning on music to lift his spirits, he fails to break open the door. Then, a call comes through on the car's device. Suspicious, Chiro answers it. On the line is Dr. Enrique Ferrari, the man who trapped him in this inescapable car. Enrique explains he is a 60-year-old widower born in Kilmarnock, Scotland. Fed up after 29 robberies of his possessions over the years, this time he decided to take a different approach. The gynecologist installed an alarm connected to his phone that locks the car doors remotely when someone breaks in, making it impossible to open from the inside. The only way for Chiro to get out is with Enrique's key. He also reveals the car is completely armored, soundproof, and has tinted windows preventing outsiders from seeing in. Enrique laments that during his modest childhood, people could leave their home doors open without incident. Finally, he asks Chiro what he would do if he caught his son stealing. When the criminal claims ignorance, the doctor hangs up, leaving him trapped. Enraged, Chiro threatens to take Enrique's life as soon as he's free. Suddenly, the air conditioning turns on remotely, giving the thief a brief chance to cool off. But within seconds, the interior starts freezing. Chiro tries to turn off the AC, but the vehicle doesn't obey his commands. He puts his shirt back on to keep warm and rips a piece of his pants to re-bandage his gunshot wound. Using the car mat and scraps of paper, he covers the air vents. Hours later, as Chiro is nearly frozen, the temperature finally starts rising again. That's when he receives another call from Enrique, asking the same question. What would Chiro do if he caught his son stealing? Again, the criminal claims ignorance. Enrique then describes the day his daughter's home was invaded. As she pulled into the garage, 2 burglars emerged and stole all their money and valuables. Not satisfied, they held Enrique's 5-year-old grandson at gunpoint for 3 hours. Afterward, his daughter's family fled to Barcelona seeking greater safety. After this harrowing story, the call ends. A police car then approaches, giving Chiro a spark of hope that he'll be rescued. An officer exits and examines the suspicious vehicle. Meanwhile, Chiro screams and knocks on the windows, but the police officer doesn't detect anyone inside. The cop simply issues a parking ticket before leaving. That afternoon, as rain falls outside, Chiro suffers from intense thirst. Enrique calls again, asking for the trapped man's full name and ID number in exchange for water to prevent dehydration. Desperate, Chiro follows his captor's instructions. Enrique directs him to the wash hose in the back, allowing Chiro to drink some dirty water from the bottle. However, his bigger problem now is hunger. If this deprivation continues, he's in danger of starving to death. Despite his determination to escape, Chiro wakes weak and injured, realizing he can't break out alone, confiding in Enrique about his gunshot wound. The doctor, troubled by the news, reveals his cancer's spread, leaving him little time. As Enrique recounts details of the 28 robberies he experienced before this vengeful entrapment, Chiro sweats profusely and then collapses. Upon waking, he's convinced time is short. Overwhelmed by hunger, he resorts to eating book pages, fearing his fate will go unknown to his family. With no hope of imminent rescue, the desperate criminal begins customizing the entire interior of the car, leaving clues that he was trapped inside in case the vehicle is eventually found. To avoid dehydration, Chiro has to resort to collecting and drinking his bodily fluids, a nightmarish situation he could have never imagined. That afternoon, another would-be thief approaches, attempting to break into the 4x4. However, before he can succeed, two men intervene and start brutally beating him. Nearby pedestrians join in attacking the failed robber, who is swiftly apprehended by arriving police officers and taken to the station. By nightfall, Chiro's hunger has become so extreme that he considers eating the cricket that has been his sole companionship these past few days. Ultimately, he decides to let the insect live, as they are both in equally precarious predicaments. Hours later, Chiro is awoken by another call from Enrique. In an unusually good mood, the captor informs him there is a candy hidden in the trunk's rear compartment. Chiro scrambles to retrieve and ravenously devours the rare treat. The starving thief pleads for more water and a cigarette. With nothing else to occupy his time, Chiro closely observes the habits and patterns of the neighborhood residents, noting their routines. Chiro watches enviously as a local beggar, who had been eating rotten apples the day before, luckily finds a discarded slice of pizza to satiate his hunger. The trapped thief is jealous of the beggar's fortunes. Later, Chiro continues working tirelessly on a plan to breach the car door. He finally succeeds in making a small hole using tools found in the trunk. However, the opening is so tiny that even his loudest screams are nearly inaudible to any potential passersby. In another call, Enrique shares news about Irina and Lionel, Chiro's wife and son. At first, the criminal fears something has happened to his family. But to his surprise, Enrique reveals he gave Irina $150,000 in cash, under the pretext that her husband had won the lottery. He even suggested she use the windfall to buy a home and invest in their son's education, as Chiro doesn't deserve the family he has. Enrique claims he obtained the criminal's file from a police friend, discovering Chiro had previously taken a life. The thief tries explaining it was self-defense during a robbery gone wrong when a store owner attacked him with a knife. He insists he already paid for this mistake with years in prison. However, Enrique declares Chiro the chosen one, now sentenced to this new cruel punishment. That night, accepting his likely long-term imprisonment, the man decides to help his cricket companion escape to freedom, wishing it luck. Later, Chiro accidentally starts the car by pressing the ignition button. He fastens his seatbelt, reverses, and purposefully causes a crash, finally shattering the window glass and gaining his freedom. The thief trudges through the streets until reaching the nearest convenience store. Desperately, he dashes inside, opens the freezer, and gulps down an entire bottle of water. Grabbing 2 hamburgers, he ravenously devours them while sitting down. However, the security guard soon approaches, ordering Chiro to leave. In a shocking turn, the criminal pulls out a gun and shoots the guard point-blank in the chest. But at that moment, Chiro violently awakes, realizing it was all just a cruel dream. Utterly exhausted from relentless suffering, and having lost all hope of escape from this inescapable cage, He points the gun at his chin, ready to end his torment. Just then, he's interrupted by another call from Enrique. Chiro desperately begs to be allowed to see his son Lionel one last time, but the doctor coldly denies this request. Undeterred, the thief declares he'll take his own life instead, but his gun fails to fire, cruelly shattering his release plan yet again. Later, on Enrique's orders, Chiro looks ahead as the car's headlights flick on, finally revealing the face of his cruel captor and kidnapper. The doctor then enters the vehicle, spraying air freshener to mask the overwhelming stench inside. Enrique takes Chiro's gun, lights a cigarette, and places it in the thief's mouth, telling him to relax while he examines the gunshot wound. Chiro screams in agony as the doctor brutally rips the bullet out of his leg. As Enrique steps away to take a patient's call, Chiro seizes the opportunity, grabbing the gun and shooting the doctor before trying to make his escape. However, the deranged Enrique survives the attack relatively unscathed. He quickly gives chase after the fleeing criminal. But before Chiro can be recaptured, a police officer on patrol appears, catching Enrique in the act of pursuing someone. The doctor tries to explain he was merely punishing a thief. Yet with his tortuous actions now exposed, Enrique's twisted justice has disastrously unraveled, leaving more questions than answers about the depths of his depravity. However, the police officer points her gun at the doctor, insisting he release the captive man immediately. 2 hours pass in a tense standoff, with Enrique adamantly refusing to free Chiro, assuring he only wants to ensure justice is served. Taking advantage of the growing crowd of journalists and onlookers, Enrique seizes the opportunity to put the situation to them, asking what should be done with this criminal. He states the audience will decide whether the doctor should eliminate Chiro or release him. As the cops realize the crowd is siding with Enrique, they decide to call in a crisis negotiator named Amadio to intervene. Meanwhile, the doctor stands next to his car, gun pointed at the semi-conscious Chiro's neck. At this point, the thief has given up fighting, merely waiting for his fate to be decided by the man who ensnared him in this deadly trap. When the retired negotiator Amadio arrives, he informs the doctor he's there to help resolve the situation peacefully. But he cautions that anger won't resolve anything. If Enrique eliminates this man, it makes no difference to the world full of criminals. Taking this young man's life will only destroy Enrique's own life and career. After hearing Amadio's plea, the resolute doctor does not back down. He claims that even if his actions don't change the world, at least he is doing something, unlike his daughter who fled the country entirely to escape the crime. Amadio argues that Enrique has already made his point, as Chiro appears to have learned his harsh lesson. He implores the doctor to let the criminal go now. Instead, Enrique turns again to address the surrounding crowd of onlookers. Who here has been robbed, despite having bars on their windows and advanced home security systems? He asks. Most of the people present raise their hands in response. In an attempt to build trust, and with Enrique's permission after ensuring all weapons are put aside, a policewoman approaches and carefully hands him a bottle of water. Shockingly, after taking a sip, the doctor leans over and unexpectedly kisses the back of her hand. He then passes the bottle to the extremely dehydrated Chiro. Seizing this moment, Amadio once more pleads with Enrique to release the man, revealing he lives alone after his wife's passing with no children or relatives. He has few friends and must subsist on a limited retiree's salary. Despite this tenuous personal connection, tensions continue mounting with no clear resolution in sight to this volatile hostage situation. The negotiator reveals these personal details to explain that he has nothing left to lose and asks if, when this is all over, Enrique would welcome him to his home for a beer. At this, the doctor thinks of his daughter and realizes she does not deserve to be remembered as the child of the man who took a robber's life. So Enrique decides to release Chiro. He gets into his car, while the freed criminal is immediately handcuffed and taken into police custody. The surrounding crowd can hardly believe the doctor has released the man he held captive for 5 harrowing hours. As the officers attempt to also arrest Enrique, Amadio suddenly notices the doctor's arm place a countdown timer on the roof of the vehicle. He quickly realizes it's a bomb and urgently calls for the officers to retreat. Seconds later, the car violently explodes, incinerating Enrique in a blaze of finality. In the end, the doctor took his disturbing brand of justice to the grave, leaving more questions than answers about the demons that drove him to such extremes.